first question that I asked Rajiv when I got into this role, and I love to ask this question of everyone that I speak to in the space of procurement. How would you, Sachin, define procurement to a common man?
So that's interesting, right? So basically, I mean, in a very generic term, procurement is basically art and science of buying product and services, right? So basically, for your company, you buy products and services which can be used either directly into the end product or services which you have, or it can either support the end product or services. Why I keep saying art and science, because it involves some of the very niche skills like negotiations, learning about industry, learning about market, and also science because it has some technologies in place. There are some set processes which you can follow to be a successful procurement person. So it's really that in a layman terms. Basically, what you do is you try to save cost for your company. So you try to reduce your bottom line. You try to reduce the risk. So you make sure you have contracts in place. You have a due diligence done for each supplier. So you try to reduce the risk. And third thing is you kind of help your company to grow by giving them the right partner or right suppliers to grow. So that's the typical procurement function is.
Got it. Yeah, that's amazing. That's very like simple to understand. It's such a difficult word, but you make it sound like everyone can do it. So tell me, like I know everyone can't do it. So what is your current role, and what are the complexities that you simplified so easily for us? So what's your current role at WPP?
So as of now, I'm working as a regional procurement lead for Asia, and from last few days we're expanding into Australia and New Zealand, so it becomes a pack role. Essentially, in simple terms, WPP is a parent company, right? So we have a lot of group companies under us, and we basically buy product and services through strategic sourcing for these group companies. Some of these, as you mentioned, Group M, Ogilvy, and so on. So currently we are managing strategic services for them. It could be production, it could be marketing, it could be facility management, it could be IT, telecom, you name it, and we kind of have a supplier at a group level for these functions. So that's my current role in WPP.
And Sachin, how have you seen what have been the changing needs of these various companies that you manage through WPP?
Uh, I keep saying this, right? Last 2 years had changed so many things. I mean, last 2 years had been very much catalyst into procurement or technology or any other field, right? So when we started, we are looking at quite basic categories like travel and facility management and so on. As we grew into the role, as we grew as a group procurement function, we started to look into more complex and more relevant categories, like talking about stock images or freelancer management platforms and more business supporting categories. We have seen within last year, we also help our companies to get COVID related stuff on board. So we even purchased some oximeters and so on. So it was always a changing need. When you support a group function, you don't really go on a set path, but your needs also change a lot. The digital transformation has been the biggest change in last few years. We are now looking at more and more technologies to support all the operating companies.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Sounds amazing. Okay, so what has been your journey like, right, from oilfield services to then moving to Accenture, and now being at WPP? Like I have switched many countries and roles in my life, but somehow like the essence of me has stayed the same, but the work environment has changed drastically. So like, what has
Right.
been your experience of this transition, but in the space of procurement?
So, I mean, I'll be lying if I say everything was planned, right? It was absolutely not planned. And I really like this Steve Jobs quote when he said that all the dots are connected. When you look backwards, right, you will see everything is connected. So, kind of one thing led to another. It was never planned that, okay, I'll move from this industry to another one. My first serious job was with Schlumberger, as you said. It is into oil field services. That was a campus recruitment. So I did my master's from IIT Roorkee in India. And Schlumberger just happened. It was a day zero firm, as people who are familiar with IIT will know. The companies who come on first day of recruitment are called as day zero. They are probably the most prestigious, high-paying roles, so everyone wants to get that. I knew that Schlumberger likes to move people around, and I love travel personally. So I was like, okay, if I get this firm, it will be great. So I started with that mindset. Got selected in Schlumberger. What interesting thing which has happened, like in every role I kind of gather some things which help me to get another role. So for example, in Schlumberger, as you said, as a supply chain lead for this first shale gas project in India. So essentially we used to buy services and product from suppliers and then sell it to our client, or cross charge it to client. So you basically get end to end knowledge of commercial value chain. You typically know how every dollar is on project and how you spend it, right? So that was a great insight for me. Also, I learned how to manage stakeholders because I was talking to these really technical, smart people, well engineers, all the petroleum guys, and these are super talented people, right? Much talented than what I was. And then at the same time, I was talking to logistic guys, I was talking to tax people, I was talking to finance controller to define ROI. So you kind of get a sense of stakeholder management. So
Hmm.
that really the learning which I took ahead. I spent like around 3.5 years with Schlumberger, and then moved to Accenture into consulting. Now, at that time, Accenture was looking for, I think, talent with some oil and gas background, which can be also sellable for client because consulting is all about serving your client. And the fun part is most of the time within Accenture, I spent it on retail projects and non-oil field projects, right? Again, that was a typical consulting job. You move from one project to another project. What I learned there is kind of how to break any complex problem into a simple one line problem and then solve it. So it was really interesting. What you understand is to look into more strategically when you are into consulting. So that was my learning which we took ahead. Communication was big part. I think we really understood as a consultant how to communicate things with clients as well as internally. So that was my learning in Accenture. Speaking of communication, then I got into WPP. At that time, WPP was looking into expanding their group procurement function, establishing their function in India. And that's when I thought all the consulting project. I mean, the only regret I had within consulting was you don't get to see the full outcome of your project, right? You only put the strategy forward, but you never know how far it has gone. It has gone. So WPP kind of gave me that option to convert that thought into a project and implement it. And that's when I thought, okay, let's go ahead with this. Started with WPP in India. It was a great opportunity to grow a function, right? You start recruiting people, you start to internally sell the ideas, which is I have found it tough, more complex than externally selling. So that was an interesting role. That happened in India, and then natural progression was after India look into something regionally, and that's how I moved here. So I mean, to answer your question, which is a long answer already, but to answer your question, it's not really planned. It was like I did what I could do best for that particular job, which led me to another opportunity and so on.
Got it, got it, got it. Makes sense. Tell me, what are some new skills that you feel you've had to learn or unlearn through your jobs?
I think that's a nice question. Really good question. It it will take me a moment to think on it, right? But I
I
think
know. Yeah.
learning wise, it's bit easy to spot because there are so many things have changed, right? I mean, when I started, I still remember we used to save the Excel file every minute because you never know it will crash, right? So a simple VLOOKUP can end up into getting the file corrupted. I still remember the time when I used to have PowerPoint slides with scanned copies of photos as graph on it. So we used to use textbook to take a scan copy and so on. So technology has changed a lot. I mean, from there to now, when we have best of the best platforms, tools for spend analytics, for example, and so on. So it has really changed a lot in that way.
Yeah.
Some of the things which you need to unlearn is really the industry specific bad practices which you kind of carry with you. So, for
Hmm.
example, there is a term which I don't know if it is existed, but I like to think that I created it. Is the curse of high margin industry. So
Hmm.
when you work within a procurement for a high margin industry, when your profit margin are high, you tend to ignore a lot of things. So, for example, a industry like FMCG, where the margins are so small, the procurement is absolutely savvy. They will try to save every cent which they can save. But if you are on a high margin industry, you tend to think, okay, it doesn't matter if I don't have a e-sourcing platform for my travel management.
Hmm.
And that these are some of the bad things which you take with you. So you need to unlearn that, right? So learning will be definitely like thinking of more technology related upscaling. I also learned very quickly when I moved to Accenture is that procurement is not only about cost cutting. I think that was one of the biggest learning which I had during my journey.
Yeah.
When I started, my understanding was it was all about cost cutting and efficiencies. Later, I understood it's much more than that. It's more like getting more value for the same cost, and at the same time mitigating risk, looking at sustainability and all other things.
Yeah, yeah, completely makes sense. Wow. Yeah, it's like you get in so sincere and like with the right way of doing things, and then you have to keep like morphing your style and ideology and skill set to get smarter and savvier with time. It's interesting. So yeah. Sure, you're gonna say something?
No, I was just saying it's like any other career, right? You can't plan everything. It's a long way. It's a marathon. You can't really plan. You have to work your way out
Yeah.
and navigate through it.
Totally. So basically, Sachin, looking at your journey, like what do you think has changed about the basic field of procurement? Like because you worked in like most people have just worked in one company, but like because you've had so many different, you have a purview, like you almost have like a global view of procurement. What do you think has changed in the procurement industry?
So I can pick up two, three trends, right? Which I can see what has changed. As I say, first thing was technology. I mean, technology has changed a lot.
Yeah.
Working in procurement in like before 2010 was like working almost like on a account payable thing. You just look into ledgers and so on. So technology has drastically changed. And that is one change for sure. The second thing which I notice is procurement has become more strategic department as a whole. So you now have a seat on highest level of company, steering committees and so on. You can see a lot of consulting companies getting into procurement related consulting projects. So earlier, traditionally, only top 100 or Fortune 100 companies will have procurement related consulting project running, and now you can see even startups are looking from day one on how to be commercially savvy, how to have a strategic sourcing in place and so on. So that change is quite visible. You can see a lot of smart guys getting into it. People are choosing procurement as a career by choice and not by accident. I mean, we have some senior members on this call itself, and they can vouch for it. People used to end up in procurement by accident, but now people are choosing procurement as a career.
Why do you think
Uh,
they're like what do you think they are thinking when they're choosing procurement as a career? Like what new insights would they bring that are not already
it's
there?
it's it's the understanding of whole commercial chain, right? Once you and I used to jokingly say that I'm a basically mechanical engineer, right? So when I was out of college, I used to dream to work for a design related job, doing something in machine design and so on. But when I understood the business of things, I thought that commercial is more fancy, for the lack of better word, right? And that is where the company adds value if you are commercial savvy. So I think nowadays people have realized that you need to in order to grow yourself and add maximum value to your company, they want to align themselves with company's goal. And one of the key goal every company has is to how to increase top line and how to reduce bottom line. And that's where I think that more and more people are now choosing either sales and marketing, which is somewhere linked to top line, or procurement commercial field, which is somewhere linked to bottom line. So
Yeah.
and then of course, I mean, I'm not demeaning or any importance of technical roles and that requirement, but at the same time, those who want to be commercially aligned, they are either choosing one of these two things. um, and that's why one of the trend you will see is lot of importance given to indirect procurement. So direct is everything which goes into the final product or services. Indirect is everything else in a layman term, right? So direct procurement is quite mature now. Everybody knows this. If you gave me a product, let's say this pen, give me 7 days, I'll figure out raw material costing, machine related pricing, and everything, and come up with the best break even price for it, right? But indirect involves lot of variable factors, like marketing services involve creative people. You can't benchmark them against anything, right? There is facility management involves a lot of labor rules and compliances, salary indexes, and so on. So that's why you can see more and more consulting firm going for indirect related consulting project. And
Yeah.
these things are driving talent also, right? They can see that I can join procurement, I can revamp this indirect thing into something meaningful and be expert in it. So I think these trends have changed. I mean, I remember 10, 12 years back when I got assigned indirect category, I used to say, can I do something indirect? Because indirect was something like not looked kind of looked down upon. But now that has changed. So these are things which are changing. Uh,
So two follow-up questions. A, now that like you've seen this trend, where do you think the procurement industry is going to go next? That's one. And my second question is, where else can procurement be applicable that we haven't, like that you think we haven't still thought of?
Right. So one is like when it is going, where it is going next, and where it could be applicable, right? Where we haven't seen it. So to answer the first question, right? I think the digital changes which have come, which will really influence a lot in procurement. I mean, I do foresee that lot of admin related work which we used to do will go slowly. Like for example, we don't really we don't need to really have a person sitting in our offices doing travel ticket booking. You can easily have a e-sourcing platform. uh, Earlier the digital transformation was related to tactical things like changing your procure to pay process or getting a spend analytics done. Now what I've seen the trends is we're talking about smart contracts, right? We are talking about purchasing bots. So I recently saw a video where they're talking about a purchasing bot which will replace e-sourcing tool. Now that's an amazing concept, right? So this is digitally changing a lot. So as a next, I think it will be more strategic. It will be more and more strategic as we go further. The procurement team will never lose its relevance, right? Because you still need to have somebody who is acting as a gatekeeper for compliances as well as cost efficiencies. So that will remain there. So even if you end up following a gig economy and having freelancer on board, you'll still like to have a platform to manage that freelancer. So I think that will still remain. As we go further, I don't think it is there yet, but we'll see a lot of fintech companies entering into B2B space. You will see things like smart funding. You will see applications for networking capital, how to manage cash flow, and so on. So these things are yet to explore. And as we go further, I think procurement will have responsibility to drive these changes.
Interesting.
Traditionally, it was like somebody telling us what to do. And now I think you need to find out right partner and introduce them to business, saying, guys, I found this. can we experiment on this? You can
Interesting.
already see the GDPR compliances or all the ESG related discussion which is going on. So that's really where it is going. So I mean, in a nutshell, it's a great place to be. I think
Yeah.
it is just a start. Procurement is finding their real meaning now, and
Yeah.
it's up to you where you take it, right?
Yeah, interesting. I'm also almost thinking there will be more job creation with this detangling and tangling, like different kinds of functions trying to meet. There'll be more job creation to make that work. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people think that digital transformation will actually reduce the number of job, but I think that it's not the case. It only increases relevant strategic job for everyone. So it's
Yeah.
actually a good place, right? So yes, there will be new set of skill set. You need to have people with. I mean, I started a small analytic shared services in India with WBP to support our procurement data team and so on. So we had like people working on Tableau and all this spend visualization skill set, which we never used to have in procurement, right? That's a new skill set which is added now. So of course it is having the relevance. It's going to go to better places. On your second question on where it is yet not applicable, right? And again, I keep saying procurement is everywhere, right? Even merger and acquisition is glorified procurement if you look at it that way, right? If you are buying a company, basically you are completing a procurement transaction. So I think it is applicable for everyone. I do think that indirect procurement is still a way to go, that is still not explored. I do think that all the companies with high margin will
Mm,
realize the importance of procurement, and they
mm,
will be more strategic towards it.
definitely.
And and the third one is all the startups which are coming up, right? um, I think it's high time that they start thinking commercially from day one. So
Yeah.
along with setting up their product and services, if
Yeah.
they are aligned with their commercial goal, you will see a lot of startups being more and more successful.
Yeah.
You don't have to define that role as procurement. You can
Yeah.
have somebody like a commercial, I don't know, commercial lead who can even look into their pricing, because ultimately the technique is same, right? We often I used to run workshops where I used to teach client facing sales team on how to negotiate with client procurement, because the methodology is same if you look at it either way, whether it's pricing and selling or buying and negotiating with supplier. So I think these are the areas where it is still not there and can grow.
Got it. Got it. Interesting. No, I'm really excited about just thinking about where it'll go. And I'm also thinking about how people must be starting to think also what else is there without technology that hasn't been explored and where could procurement be there. So I think both on tech and without tech, we will see a lot of disruption and innovation. So excited to see
Absolutely.
that, right?
Absolutely. I think tech is the catalyst,
Yeah.
but even without tech, there are so many areas yet to be explored.
Totally, totally. Yeah. Like there was this whole Indian farmers protest that happened some time ago. I'm just thinking like where would, procurement come in there and how would they kind of like satiate the needs of the government, yet the farmers, yet reliance, and what creativity might come in there. Like just like political lobbying with procurement and how some of that might start taking shape. Um,
Yeah, without getting into a lot of controversies, right? But
yeah,
government is always the biggest procurement
so,
channel, right? I mean, public procurement is a skill in itself.
yeah,
There are a lot of experts in that area, those who only work with public procurement. If
yeah,
you're talking about India, we have already seen so many agro-related startup coming up, be it on last season of Shark Tank in India or anywhere else. You can see a lot of startups who are either coming out of India or dependent on India. I've
yeah,
seen one startup in UK who essentially get a lot of import of raw material from India, and again related to agro. Interestingly, government is moving their procurement into digital world now.
Yeah.
So, if I'm not wrong, I could be wrong on this, but Indian government has made tendering as e-tendering now. So it's no longer physical paper, but it's e-tendering. So that's the first step, right? Of course, the bureaucracy and all these things will take time, but I can see a lot of changes happening. I was reading a article on First Post. They share five interesting trend about India, and one of the trend was India has digitally surpassed real-time payment. Uh, so they are number one in real-time payment in the world. So they have surpassed China and US for that, which is amazing, right? If you look at the success of digital payment.
Yeah.
And this is, I know this is more B2C, but I think within no time it will hit B2B and change the procurement scenario.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Interesting. Why do you think that's happened? Like, why do you think India surpassed the payment thing, the digital
I think
payments?
a lot of credit to startups, right? I mean, if you look at the UPI, if you look at the Paytm and Alibaba back Paytm and all these companies, right? It became so easy to have this transaction. Every retail store nowadays have a UPI, a scan code. That really helped. COVID, of course, is a catalyst everywhere in the world. I mean, in everywhere we have seen that COVID actually promoted this digital transaction.
Yeah,
So, and of course, the government has the Indian government is quite keen on making things happen digitally. So I think all these things it's the right mix, right? And with the volume which we have in India, I think it helps a lot to
it
drive this initiative further.
is a big factor why we're seeing this. I
And
also think that
And
as
just to add one point to it, because I don't want to lose that credit, I personally think Geo and Reliance Group has a lot to do on it. I think the way they have changed the data, the telecom. Almost every Indian has a mobile phone now with a strong internet connectivity. One of the trend was actually there are more people in rural India using internet than in urban area, so which is
yeah,
amazing, and a lot of credit to Reliance Group on making Geo thing happen, right?
yeah. No, really interesting. Just like, and how all of this digital payments is also, I think, pushing the inflation globally because they're just seeing people are more spending powers. Therefore, like we're just seeing inflation, the prices of everything rise so much, creating a big layer of unemployment and which is completely been silently wiped out. And I think like that would be another area of maybe some kind of offshore procurement that we might see. Like, how do we optimize these people?
Yeah, I mean it's a complex issue, right? It's a complex issue. I think I'm not really fully qualified to comment, but what I can comment is the importance of all these parameters leading into a lot of shared services business which is coming up. So you will
Yeah,
see India and Asia, for that example, is now becoming a hub for procurement share services
yeah,
for global procurement teams. So even we have seen these cases in Kuala Lumpur, Jakarta, Ho Chi Minh City, and you name it, right? India, Bangalore, Mumbai. You have seen a lot of procurement share services centers coming up. Lot of factors contribute to it, and it's just not the economy, but economy is one of the key factors contributing to it. And of
yeah.
course, you need to have talent and all other things in place. But yes, procurement has seen that impact, that we are seeing a lot of shared services center which are coming up, and it's a good change, right? As I said, it's an interesting time.
It is. It's a really exciting time. You're seeing like more bravado in our world, which is a good place to be. Technology also makes that visible, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about India and Indian startups. What do you think, Sachin, Indian startups, like from your global, like Singapore and like working with Australia and New Zealand and all of that, what do you think India can learn from global procurement trends? And I'll also just quickly add to this, right? Like I follow a lot of like Cannes Film Festival and all of these things. So I keep looking at, you know, American celebrities and Indian celebrities in comparison, and they just like don't like. I keep wondering how will India get the edge, and then I think that maybe Indian startups also either they just remain who they are, or they get influenced by global trends. And what do you think they could learn from us, and we could learn from them?
I must say you have an amazing skill to make a procurement interview interesting by giving these examples and bringing
Like
all these topics, right?
I'm very
I
out.
never I
Yeah,
never thought I'll hear Cannes Festival in a procurement discussion. So great start.
it's just
Uh,
exciting. Yeah,
so I mean, to be honest, it's both ways, right? India and Asia. I'll speak about Asia. I'm working regionally for last few years, but Asia has a lot to learn from global, and at the same time, global has a lot to learn from Asia. So if I start from the later part first, so in terms of doing business, Asia is all about complexities that are involved into doing business, right? I keep saying that a procurement contract in US or a procurement in US is different to procurement in Singapore, which is different to procurement in Jakarta, which is different to procurement in Shanghai, and different to procurement in anywhere in India, right? So it's a completely different set of things.
yeah,
If you have to get a common trend, I think global can learn business complexities, like how to navigate through business complexities from India. Um, Global can also learn from the digital disruption which Asia is going through.
yeah,
Look at China or look at Singapore or look at India, right? It's amazing the way these digital payments are happening. Commercially, I think we are much advanced Asia as a community within
yeah,
procurement. Complexity is something which is amazing, so that global can learn. What we can learn from global is one thing, and that is something which bothers me a lot, is
yeah,
we're still in this mentality of cost cutting when it comes to procurement. I think
totally.
somewhere we're not ready to recognize the value of good suppliers, having good partner in place, even if that means you need to spend slightly more on the face value,
Yeah,
but overall better or much less when you consider the total cost of ownership, right? TCO as they call. So I think that's the change. We still need to focus on the entire package. We need to learn on risk, managing the risk, on data compliances from global. So look at Europe when they are implementing GDPR so nicely, or look at US where they are so serious about ESG initiatives and so on.
yeah.
With so many global companies working in Asia, it is coming top to down. So that's a good change. I mean, we are also talking about sustainability here, but I think that's the best which uh, both teams can learn from each other.
Yeah. And do you think that like thinking from a very procurement perspective, I know we're getting digital and all of these things, but do you think it is sometimes good for a country to actually stubbornly maintain its way and style and identity, and how much should we start to like इंडिया में सब कुछ घर में बन जाता है, ये क्या है, like what is the salad की recipe, salad dressing घर पे बना देंगी मम्मी, right? Like that is our Indian mentality, somehow. So I think like cost cutting, 3 rupees on that, 2 rupees on that, Instamart is cheaper than Swiggy, like Zomato or whatever. So I feel like how much should India get influenced, you think, in the space of procurement by what is happening globally, and how much should we just
Yeah,
remain?
I like a term a lot, which is called as globalization.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's not globalization, it's not localization, it's globalization. And a good example to explain layman on it is India is the only country where McDonald's sells a aloo tikki burger,
totally.
right? Which is nowhere in the menu in across the world. Right? It's just the so the McDonald is same. The processes which they follow is same. Their supply chain standards are same. Their supplier standards are same.
Yeah,
Their their operational, like Tom, the process of operation is same, but still there is an Indian element to it. So I think that's where we are lacking. We need to work with good suppliers, and that's why I'm a huge fan of having global and regional contract, but pricing to be decided at a local country level.
Yeah.
So what you can do is you can actually have uh, like I'll give you a very again layman example that you have a tie-up with XYZ company at a global level, and you say for India maximum you can minimum discount should be 10%.
Yeah.
But then what is the actual number can be decided by local procurement team. So you make sure that you work with a very strong supplier who has all the right things in place. You
Yeah.
know your risk is mitigated, you have a global agreement, but then you leave the commercial aspect for local guys to decide and come up in terms with. I think that's the best way to go forward. You cannot choose just for the sake of choosing that this is the way we do it. And again, another example which I keep giving is we no longer accept salary in cash, right?
Yeah.
We have moved from that tradition to now having accounts in place, which is a good change, right? So similarly you should follow localization. You should have principle in place, but you can have certain like country based solution for each country or region based solution for each region.
And I think it's a lot of like what the digital world has made possible is learning has become very visible. So now it's all a matter of trial and error, what we want to take from where and what we want to stick to us.
Yeah,
That's
now
the best.
everything is on Google, right? So basically, I mean, you can learn anything. My one of my partner in consulting used to say this term called learn and earn. So
Yeah,
he used to say you learn for a few days and then earn lifelong on that skill. So you
yeah,
need to do learn and earn a lot.
yeah. No, completely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's hard to be creative and original also these days because everything is everywhere. So how do you like get an edge? It's just a difficult world. So I think you're right.
But
Like
I,
procurement has come in big as a function, especially because everything is so like visible and obvious. You
yeah, and
just
it's
need
the best time to be honest, it's a good time to copy paste best practices, right?
yeah,
You now know that what world class procurement functions are doing,
right.
and it's so easy to now duplicate it. If you don't want to do it in house, you can either hire a good leader or
Yeah,
go for a consulting firm which can give you that solution. So depending on how you look into it, there are so many procurement driven consulting firms which are in the market, right for boutique to multinational ones. So you can really pick and choose things. There is no excuse nowadays to not to have a good procurement function in place.
absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I am going to before we like get to our last question, I'm just gonna pause at this point and I'll just open it up to any questions. You and I have like had all of this masala chat, so now let's open it up to everyone. Anyone who wants to ask Sachin any questions, please unmute and feel free to ask.
Yeah, yes, Sachin, I want to ask, like, in your experience, like, what do you think? Does procurement invest enough in training and uplifting? And if yes, where? And if not, what do you think it needs to be done?
So yes, I mean, Saina, lot of good companies are investing into training, and in fact, they have a separate learning and development team, and they make sure that procurement has enough modules. I have been fortunate to go through some of the really good trainings in terms of negotiations, be it things like Scott work training, which are considered as best in negotiation. So yes, I mean there are trainings in place. We do have platforms like yours, right, Procurement League, where people can go and learn through the community and go through the material which is available. There are trainings which are available in negotiation. There are of course the certification which are quite famous now, CIPM and all these certification which you can do it through procurement. So yes, I've seen all the organizations which are serious about procurement talent and procurement function are investing into trainings.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Shahina. Anyone else has a question for Sachin?
Sachin, Tapan this side.
Hi, Tapan.
Yeah, as a corollary to what Sahina asked, as per you, what are those, some new skill sets which a procurement guy should, focus more than the traditional skill sets? Because there are a lot of things which have changed. So technology adoption is one thing, but other than that, any some key skill sets which we should focus as a professional in the new normal.
I mean, two skill set come into my mind, and again, I'm for the sake of answering this question, ignoring all the traditional one, negotiations and so on, right? But two skill set. One is project management skill set. I know it's a traditional one, but I mean, it has helped me a lot. If you know how to make a project successful as a procurement function and how to own that project, um, it is amazing skill set to have. And the second thing is I'm a big believer into blockchain technology, and I'm not talking about any Bitcoin or any coins here or currency. It's more about the blockchain technology which supports smart contract and so on. So I'm learning for it. I'm no expert in that domain. I'm still learning on it. One of the book which I'm reading right now is Barter to Bitcoin. It's a nice book, talks about all the systems in place. But I'm a firm believer that we should learn about blockchain. It is going to come handy in terms of procurement and smart or DeFi, decentralized finance. So these two skill set come into my mind for now.
Great, thank you, Sachin.
Thanks.
Hey Sachin, this is Rajiv. One quick question for you. Uh,
Yeah, Raju.
um, I hear a lot about procurement executives when they're looking to hire and in their team, asking for storytelling skill set in procurement. Uh, the storytelling can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but in procurement, given you have been at the forefront of digital and you had a very rich experience, what do you I mean how would you explain this skill set of storytelling for procurement people, like what exactly it is, what does it help do?
So, I mean, it's interesting question, right? And I'm into WPP, and trust me, I mean, this is one of the most important skill set which you should have. And so, in layman's terms, storytelling is making any concept interesting and basically convincing other parties on why there is so much value into it. Now, and it's again a way of communication. If you go by all the basic principles of communication, right from if you if you read Pyramid Principle, which is an excellent book, everybody should read it. I think it's important to communicate what you are trying to do, especially for procurement person who are by nature we are a cost center, right? So procurement doesn't own any budget. You're basically using another team's budget and convincing them why you should spend your money with this supplier on this project. So I think it's very important to have the storytelling skill, which not only highlights one aspect of supplier selection, which could be cost saving, but also gives a long term perspective on how you as a budget owner will um value out of this deal. So I trust the storytelling skill. I mean, I don't know if it answers your question, Raji.
It does, Sachin, and I agree with the fact that because that's what I hear from everyone, that we need our people to be good storytellers. um, and storytelling is not like vocationally telling a story. I think it is a lot about data, it is a lot about visualization,
Absolutely.
it is a lot about the new age skill set of what people call digital. I mean, yes, of course we don't want procurement people to be kind of coders and all that, but we want them to be digitally native, that they can work with compelling business cases and presentations, making use of all the digital tools, designing tools, at least the basic skill set. So I think it's interesting that everybody wants it. I think everyone has a version of it. And I think there needs to be some sort of some sort of a progression map or training course, I would say, that that can help upskill people, uplift people with the storytelling skill set, for specifically for procurement, designed for procurement, that will work for them.
Absolutely, and to be honest, I have not come across any course such. I mean,
Yeah,
if this is something, if I'm sure there will be a lot of takers for this course.
yeah,
Interestingly, by definition, story is communicating a message using a lot of data and emotional points, right?
yeah,
And basically, procurement is trying to do that. Earlier, they used to call it victory speech. I don't know if you hear this term, but
yeah.
procurement used to write victory speech where we will say we save this much. I think storytelling is a better and more impactful version of victory speech, I'll say.
Exactly.
Sachin, this is Jim Moran.
And
Hi,
I
Jim.
just want to go ahead and follow up on that, if I could.
Sure.
I mean, storytelling is, you're right. I mean, it's a basic communication skill. But one thing I think we miss in the procurement space is while we communicate data and we say this is how much savings you can have, it is more important when dealing with your internal customers, your stakeholders, your business functional leaders, that you truly understand what their need is and communicate a business plan that not only will meet that need, but meet that need in a way that will give them room in their budget to do other things. And I've had a
Absolutely.
lot of success in my career doing that. You know, taking 25 or 30% off of a proposed program that enable them to reallocate those resources that they saved into other programs, which they also desperately needed. So you need to be able to understand your stakeholder, your functional owner that you're supporting, what their true requirements are. And there's a very good program. I think it's Vital Smart. I mean, I've read both their
Okay.
books and I've attended one or two of their um, seminars. Very good, just basic communication requirements from a win-win perspective.
That's interesting. I mean, thanks, Jim, for sharing. I agree with you. I think not only we should know about stakeholders' requirement, but also the product and services itself, right? A lot of time I have seen. I mean, one advice which I give to new guys is understand what your company is doing, understand the end product, what you are buying, and so on. So it's really interesting. I mean, sometimes budget owner not even are looking to cut down the budget, but they are looking to get more in the same budget so they can retain the budget for next year as well. And all these things come handy when you know the stakeholder, when you know what exactly they are looking for, and understanding that requirement and work them as a kind of commercial advisor, right? You don't really do something on your own in silos, but understanding their need. Now, I've noted Vital Smart. I was not aware of it, but I'll definitely do more research on it. So thanks, Jim.
So, hi Sachin, I'm Bhavna here. Am I audible?
Yes, Bhavana, I can hear you.
Yeah. So, my question is that today in this digitalized world, what is means a takeaway for procurement guys means how to adopt all newer technology quickly, because otherwise, if you are not able to adopt them, they will create roadblocks. And we are not IT expert also. So many times it is difficult for procurement guys to make those digitalized solutions applicable in the industry. So what are the quick things which they can do to get quicker adoption towards this?
So if you are talking about the platforms which you use, um, and for like spend analytics or ERP tools or contract management, a lot of these platforms nowadays are quite end user friendly. I mean, there was a time when we used to struggle to just to understand how to raise a request, right? But now, if you look at the platform, they have really good dashboards in place. Again, you don't need to be coder or writing the codes to get the reports, right? It could be a good a training from the platform provider itself can help you a lot, and a lot of these are quite end user friendly. If you're talking about getting the basic skills like using the data analytics, for understanding the data or how to read data, I think that's where there is no choice but to invest some time, right? Uh, to understand. I keep saying Excel is probably the most powerful commercial tool available in the market, and if you know how to use Excel, it will make your life a lot easy. So on platform, I think it's quite easy nowadays. But working with that end user provider will help you on some of the skill set on analytics or Excel. Fortunately, unfortunately, you still have to go ahead and do it on your own. Hope that kind of
Yeah,
answers.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Any more questions? So if anyone has, I have like lots of follow-up questions. I know time won't permit, but if anyone has any follow-up questions, we will be posting this on our Procurement League page, and you could just leave them as comments. And I'm going to make sure that Sachin answers all of them. So it'll also create like a little bit of like more perspectives to the idea of procurement, because I think um, Rajiv brought about storytelling and Jim touched upon it too. And I think it's a million stories that make our world, a million perspectives. And who knows which one is right and which one is wrong, but it's just about what hits the mark and takes it forward. So I think that's the world of procurement, like which story is going to propel something forward. But thank you so much, Sachin. One last question for you is, if you could give one piece of advice to someone new to the space of procurement, coming from your length of experience, what would that be?
Uh, I don't want to sound it like a guru, right? Any Indian giving advice. I mean, we love giving advice, right? But I think I touch base upon this. I think one skill set which helped me a lot, and which I think everybody should do in procurement, is to own that particular project. Like even Jim mentioned, right? You have to own the project. You have to understand the requirement. When you own that particular model, you will not only work for your scope of work, but you will also deal and work with your stakeholder. For example, once you know why this work is assigned to me and what's the natural progression to this work now, like for example, if legal is going to review the contract, then can I learn about all the key terms and condition? Can I learn about tax system in my country or in my category? Can I know about import duties and all the regulations in place? So if you own that work, it will help you a long way. Procurement can feel like a thankless job, especially at the start of your career when it's not really that fancy. So you don't really attend all the fancy conferences overseas and so on. So at some time you feel like it's a boring transactional job, but you have to understand that there is an exponential curve, right? And there will be a tipping point when you will be in another league and working on very interesting stuff. So till that time you need to just get this good habit of owning the work, and one thing will surely lead to another. I mean, that's what I've seen. I firmly believe in that.
That's it. That's it. Absolutely. Such a good piece of advice for any job as such, but like something as complex as procurement, just like owning the complexity is such good advice. So you didn't mean to be a guru, but like that was very sweet advice. So thank you so much, Sachin, for this. Thank you everyone for joining us on a Thursday morning, evening, night. I hope you all enjoyed this discussion of sorts. We'll post it on our website, our app, and on our LinkedIn page. So you can pass it on. You have Sachin's details there. You can get in touch with him for anything and all things procurement. So thank you, everyone. Have a
Thanks,
lovely
Devangana, and thanks everyone for joining. Really enjoyed this session. Thank you.
day.